I wanted to move on to talk through closed system manufacturing. So closed automated systems are improving the reliability of cell therapy production by enhancing contamination control, consistency, operational efficiency, process control, scalability, regulatory compliance, you name it. And these advances collectively contribute to producing high quality, safe, and effective cell therapy products. Will, while I have you, let's talk through some of this. What are the primary benefits of closed system manufacturing for cell therapies, particularly in terms of quality, safety, but also regulatory compliance?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is my daily bread, right? So from a economical perspective, from a financial perspective, you can go away from an ISO 7 suite type of construct when you close a process, meaning you can go into a ballroom concept where you don't have individual suites anymore, but super suites with many workbenches in there. The workbenches themselves have a completely different design because you design it around automation rather than the availability of manual process, type of equipment, configuration, all that kind of stuff. Training of operators is much simpler because you have more of a, prime thing, primer unit. The priming is the most complicated thing there is to install a kit, a tubing kit that would be able to move things from one bag to another. And then, how people deal with that is much easier and much easier controlled, from a regulatory perspective. But also from a ease of handling perspective for those operators. So every health authorities I talk to, and I talk to probably most of them by now, have the clear expectation that we go automated, we go away from the manual process. We raise or we lower the environmental control requirements from ISO 7 to ISO 8 in our suites. Could we ever go CNC? I don't know, but what that means already is a massive savings in the manufacturing process. Your building becomes easier to maintain, and your equipment that you use for that maintenance is a good deal cheaper at that point to operate. And then from a regulatory perspective, from a consistency perspective, automation and closing the process is really the way to go due to the fact that we do make mistakes. The manual process itself has a slew of manual interventions, right? Things that happen, and therefore error sources, if you want, right? Failure modes, and dealing with those failure modes is requires quite a significant overhead of quality assurance and quality systems, training personnel to deal with that, and over the long run, we need to get much more secure and much more proficient in right first time manufacturing.
Thanks. Well, I appreciate that. And the right time, first time manufacturing, I appreciate that too. Nick, I want to, certainly if you want to provide some feedback on, the primary benefits of closed system manufacturing from product safety and quality, feel free. And then, but what I also wanted to talk to you about is, some examples of closed manufacturing platforms that are currently used in cell therapy production, and how these systems are integrated into existing manufacturing workflows, and perhaps what's next.
Sure. So, I mean, look, closed systems, I guess in the literal sense, is kind of the holy grail here, because, it would reduce microbial contamination risk, but as Will also pointed out, and importantly, it would allow you to kind of reduce the environmental manufacturing requirements, which would also significantly reduce costs, increase flexibility, potentially allow you to set up more sites. So I think that's a really important element of what closed gets you, is the environmental conditions of where you ultimately have the equipment and do the work. I mean, that's going to give you more flexibility. But again, fully closing the system, I mean, that's just inherently challenging. There's a lot of interventions required. And I think the other point that we really should, kind of not slip by is what Will brought up about getting it right first. If you think about manufacturing, especially automated manufacturing in a lot of other industries, there's an inherent piece of it, and it's called scrap, right? You have 95% yield, 98% yield, 90% yield, what have you. But there's that scrap element, which people just factor in, and it's a cost of doing business. And, it's kind of accepted to a degree. Well, again, with autologous cell therapy manufacturing, scrap is not only, comes at a significant, I'll call it, capital cost, but it also comes at a significant cost to the patient. So if you don't have that human element to be able to intervene and potentially correct the process, you've also put the patient at pretty significant risk as well. So I think that's one of the challenges as far as the bar that's kind of inherently set here for automation in this space, especially for autologous. Like you got to be able to get it right, but it also, I think, it's still going to require the need to allow people to intervene if and when needed. So I think that's, one piece to point out. The other piece, I think, is just closing systems. One of the things that to think about is the vision systems associated with a lot of these robotics now could have the potential opportunity of catching problems sooner than maybe even the human eye, because they're constantly focused potentially on certain areas of the bags or certain areas of the tubing where there are problems. So I actually think that could get you a net benefit and maybe identifying issues sooner rather than later. But again, those vision systems have to be trained. AI may help take them a lot further as far as what are early indicators of, things that are going to be problems later in the process. So I think there's a huge, opportunity there, again, as we learn more. But, as far as some of the systems that are currently being used today to automate unit operations, I mean, the Prodigy is a great example. It started off with, a focus on cell purification, but, they continue to incorporate more and more of the unit operations into the system. That would allow you to run, as close to a closed process as possible and incorporate a number of different unit operations. But again, there's still inherent limitations there, depending on the volume of the product you need, how much you need expansion, how much washing you need, how much loss you can take, for some of those unit operations. But I think there's a great example of I'll call it an automation platform that continues to incorporate more and more unit operations.